I know that ideally we would all have amazing relationships with food, but the fact is that a lot of us have to deal with this relationship that's a little bit dysfunctional for the rest of our lives, and we find different ways of dealing with it, you know? How she conquered food was like basically putting herself on a very restrictive diet. I don't think that that's like a long-term solution for most people. I think eating disorder recovery is a lifelong process. I mean, she could probably write about anything and make it interesting, to be honest. We ended up having to lie and cover things up and start putting crap in his food. If you want to learn a little bit about the shady stuff behind food business, I think you might enjoy reading this. I like reading about taboos. I like reading about things we don't like to talk about. Oh, it looks like I'm naked. Hi, welcome back to my channel. It's Charlotte. So it's been a minute, as they say. It's been a little while since I've filmed. I wanted to update on my reading for the end of April, and now we are mid-May, so you know there's been a long time in between this update and the last one, so let's just see where I've been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I finished reading 8 books since the last update, and I'm in the middle of reading a few other ones, so okay, there, I don't look naked now. So I just want to, we're gonna quickly go through some of them. So the highlights, there's some that were good, some that weren't so good. I really loved Esther Perel's The State of Affairs, Rethinking Infidelity. Unfortunately, this was now like a month ago, so I kind of forget what I have to say about it, but it was really good. If you don't know Esther Perel, she's a very controversial psychologist. She originally wrote Mating in Captivity a few years ago, I guess more than a few years ago now, and you know, that's what she likes to research, is monogamy and whether monogamy is ideal or even natural or workable in our society. I really enjoyed her book Rethinking Infidelity because affairs and infidelity and all that belongs to the taboo category, and most people, as she pointed out in her book, will be reading this when they are in the middle of a crisis. I'm not personally, but that's why I'm reading it too. It's because I like learning about these things. I like reading about taboos. I like reading about things we don't like to talk about or don't like to look at, because it helps me understand myself better, it helps me understand others better, humanity better. So this was right there with the kinds of books that I want to read. I really want to read her other book, Mating in Captivity. I do highly recommend Rethinking The State of Affairs, Rethinking Infidelity. You don't have to be non-monogamous to appreciate this book. I'm a pretty monogamous person. I don't think that non-monogamy is for me, but and polyamory I don't think is for me, but I'm still very interested in it, and I still like to learn more about why I am the way I am and why someone else might not be, and what's really, if there's, yeah, why am I more monogamous than someone else, and why is someone else more polyamorous, you know? So I really enjoyed that book. I recommend it. I also read The 5 Essential Principles of Think and Grow Rich, the practical steps to transforming your desires into riches, by the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And really, this was just like a really quick read. Like I read it in a day or two. And it's a book kind of taking the main ideas of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is, it's classic. And it really just made me want to read the original. So that's what I have to say about it. Don't read this unless you're not a reader. I guess this will give you like the bullet point version, but this just made me want to read the original. And it's not just about being rich, it's just about, it's about how to be innovative, how to excel, how to realize your, self-realization. So yeah, so don't be put off by the title if you're not into those kinds of titles. It has some valuable information in there, and so that's why I'm going to read the original. Next, I wrote Perfumes, The Guide by Luca Turin, and it's not just by Luca Turin, sorry, it's Luca Turin and Tanya Sanchez. Luca Turin is he's a biophysicist who has a long-standing interest in the sense of smell, the art of perfume, and the fragrance industry. And as I mentioned, did I mention here? No, I mentioned it in another one. Anyway, as you can see behind me, there and everywhere, I love perfume. I'm very passionate about scents in general. I'm obsessed with scents. So I'm not someone who puts on perfume just to smell flowery or pretty. Like I associate memories, I associate feelings, moods. I just love scents, and I love all fragrances. Like, to me, it's not just women's or men's perfumes. I love all perfumes. I love cologne. Actually, initially when I fell in love with perfumes, I fell in love with men's perfumes. This is supposed to be, so anyway, there's Luca Turin and there's Tanya Sanchez. Tanya Sanchez is a perfume writer and reviewer, and she also has a very passionate sort of affair with fragrance. And Luca Turin also wrote another book that I haven't read yet. It's like The Sense of Smell, I think. If it's not that, I'll put it here. And it goes really into detail, into all notes, like there's chemistry in there and stuff, So I'm really into that. I'm going to be reading that next. This was a guide to all the perfumes up until when this was written that they reviewed. I'm actually going to do a video about it where I'm telling you the reviews of the perfumes I have, because they're pretty harsh, like sometimes they'll take like a perfume that's most people love and they'll just shit on it in 2 words. So it's interesting. I definitely enjoyed this book. It's very niche, obviously, but as someone who is an avid perfume collector and lover, this was really fun to read, cover to cover, even though you could have, I love this. And if you're into perfume, I recommend that you have this book. I'm probably gonna eventually buy this book. The only thing that is kind of too bad is that it was written like over 10 years ago. So, and in that time, there've been a lot of new perfumes that have come out, and a lot of niche perfumes that have come out that are, have cult statuses that people really love, or that I would have loved to hear what their thoughts were on. So you don't have that, obviously, so maybe it's time for an updated version there. Big Fat Food Fraud, Confessions of a Health Food Hustler by Jeff Scott Phillips. And this is kind of like, well, as you can tell from the title, it's kind of like a memoir by this entrepreneur who's also a nutritionist and personal trainer, who has had a few businesses in the fitness and diet industry. He really got to know all the dirty little secrets that, all the loopholes that get you through the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the States, all this really nasty stuff that's behind our diet and food marketing campaigns in the US, but throughout the world now, obviously, too. So Jeff Scott Phillips is really annoying. I'll just say that off the bat. He's annoying. He's kind of full of himself and not great, but I did appreciate some of the information I learned in it. So I do think that if you want to learn a little bit about the nitty-gritty or the shady stuff behind food business, I think you might enjoy reading this. I especially was interested because actually one of his businesses that he started is something I've been really interested in before, which is starting a food prep service. And it was just crazy to see how he could how he ended up having to lie and cover things up and start putting crap in his food to make it more marketable, to lower the price point, because people didn't want to pay more for a quality product. So that is what ends up winning at the end of the day, is the cheaper product. And so to get to that cheaper product, there's a lot of corners that have to be cut in the food industry. And that's what I saw, you know, what they could do. And it's quite, I thought I knew a lot of it, but it's pretty gross what you can do and what you have to do and what people do, what companies do to, you know, put out a product that is going to be bought in massive quantities. So I recommend that if you're interested in the shady food and diet business, give it a read. Next up, I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara. And this was really good. I would have loved to have given this a 5-star review. However, Michelle died while writing this book, and so she couldn't finish writing it. And as a result, it feels a little bit incomplete. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about that. I think she did a great job, you know, with what she left. It's more than just a true crime sort of story. It's really also a memoir. Michelle McNamara is a really, really good writer. I mean, she could probably write about anything and make it interesting, to be honest. So I definitely recommend that. That I think was in like the best, in the list of Goodreads best of 2018 or something. Yeah, 2018, I guess. I didn't pick it for that reason, but I just noticed after I picked it up that it was. I was like, oh, cool, okay. So I do recommend that one. It was really good. It would have been even better if, you know, she could have finished the book. I don't know how or why she died. All that was explained was that she died very suddenly, and she wasn't old, you know, she was in her early 40s. So I don't know what happened. It's too bad. I'm glad that she at least got to leave behind this piece of her work. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have read more of her writing. She's a really good writer. She obviously put a lot of herself into her writing. Next, I read You Don't Look Your Age and Other Fairy Tales by Sheila Nevins. And this is like lots of short stories, memoir stories, vignettes. I think I gave it 3 stars because it was a mixed bag. Some of the stories were really good and some of them were just kind of questionable, almost like, oh, why did you include that? So because of that, I think I gave it 3 stars, but it was still, you know, worth a read. I wouldn't buy it though. I would not buy it. I will not buy it, but there you go. Next up, Cravings, How I Conquered Food by Judy Collins. And I will preface this by saying that I didn't really know Judy Collins. I know she's like a folk singer and I'm not like a big fan of hers or anything. I don't really know her work that much, but I was more interested in this because of her eating disorder history. And in case you didn't already know, I have a long past and history with eating disorders, so that will always be something that interests me. I think eating disorder recovery is a lifelong process, and because I've also worked as a personal trainer and coach, I also know that that's something that enriches my own education too. Always continuously learning about eating disorders, which affect a lot of people. This, however, was kind of a flop. I think I gave it 2 stars. It was just frankly kind of boring, kind of besides the point a lot of the times. I think the most interesting part of the book was like when she went on these little tangents. She did a lot of those where she like gave little mini biographies of other people. Like I remember she did Sissi, I have a biography of her here actually. I haven't read Sissi l'Impératrice d'Autriche, the Austrian Empress. Wow, I'm forgetting her name. Anyway, she was really interesting, so now that made me want to read her biography, you know? The title, Cravings, How I Conquered Food, how she conquered food was like basically putting herself like on a very restrictive diet and saying like, do this, don't eat any carbs, and so you don't get triggered by these, you know, salacious, amazing carb foods, which, you know, I don't think is the way necessarily. I mean, great if that works for her, but I don't think that that's like a long-term solution for most people. I know that when I've been at my most recovered and healthiest, there's no foods that really hold power over me, and for me that's the closest I've ever come to recovery, is when I feel like I can have something delicious in the house and not be tempted by it or not feel haunted by it, which is, you know, she feels like those foods can't be in the house. So to me that's not like ideal, but if it's what you need to do to be healthy long term, then, you know, maybe that's what you have to do. I know that ideally we would all have amazing relationships with food, but the fact is that a lot of us have to deal with this relationship that's a little bit dysfunctional for the rest of our lives, and we find different ways of dealing with it, you know. Even people who are recovered risk relapsing in the future, so you constantly have to stay vigilant. So yeah, so I don't think it's a good book to read if you're looking for ways to look at your own food issues or anything like that. I think it's the kind of book to read if you're someone who's a fan of Judy Collins and you want another glimpse. Oh, ow, my phone was asleep. And you want another glimpse at this part of her life, because I believe she has another biography that's just more kind of a global biography of her life. So that was kind of a flop for me. I will say I was really attracted to the cover. It's just very like sleek and minimalist, and that's what I like in a cover. Next up, another kind of flop, not really, I don't know. The Joy of Half a Cookie, Using Mindfulness to Lose Weight and End the Struggle with Food by Jean Christeller. And this was just mediocre. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The beginning was really interesting. The beginning that really delved into how we are not mindful with food and why we aren't and the repercussions of it and blah blah blah, all of that. That was interesting. Not necessarily new information, but it was interesting and readable. The second half was really going into a lot of techniques and practices to help you be more mindful around eating, which a lot of what she talked about was stuff that I already knew, that I've already done, so it wasn't really relevant for me. I still finished reading it because it's been part of my kind of goal to just finish everything I read. So so even when there's books I don't really like, unless it's really terrible and I know it's just not worth it at all, I will finish reading the book even if it seems to be not great. So those are the books I've read recently. More not so good books than great books, but I guess the highlights would be I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara, and The State of Affairs by Esther Perel. I would say those are the 2 highlights of the last 8 books I read. And I am reading a few books right now. I'm still reading that huge Stephen King novel. I'm towards the end of it, you know, but it's 1,000 pages. I think I'm on page 700 and something. So I'm getting there. And, you know, if you know Stephen King, you know that he loves to describe like every little part of every character's lives. Like he will take many pages to describe one moment or something, you know. And I'm partial to Stephen King, so I don't mind, but sometimes it can get a little tedious. Yes, he obviously enjoys this kind of writing, and I like reading his books when I want something, when I want to kind of be taken outside of my head, outside of my bubble, and I want to be transported into another land. I love his little Castle Rock, Maine stories, you know, like I love starting to read one of his novels and then realizing, oh, this character is from that other novel, and like, oh, I'm getting to know a different side of this character or whatever. So I kind of enjoy that. I like Stephen King. So anyway, those are the books that I've read in the last month. I hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know what you're reading, what you've been reading. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them. Please subscribe to my channel. I try to upload every week. I do videos on books, makeup, beauty, and fitness. Please like this video as well. That really helps me out. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.